Welcome back to Kentucky Sports Television. Joining us now on the phone is our buddy Justin Rowland from Rivals.com. He's the expert on all things going on recruiting-wise with the Kentucky football team. Justin, thank you for taking some time to talk with us.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
We'll start with the spring football game. Before we get into some of the guys that were there and some of the people coming up, maybe making decisions that Kentucky's after, it was a big day for UK football. Lots of fans showed up, lots of excitement for the future under Mark Stoops. How does that translate on the recruiting trail? Do recruits buy into that? Is that something they're paying attention to?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it was a big message that was sent to all the recruits that were there, but I think especially for some of the recruits that had maybe been to the catwalk last year and they had sort of contrasted the way that things were before and now the way that things are now. It's really some good tangible evidence that times are changing. And every recruit that I talked to was just absolutely blown away by the fan support first and foremost, but also really the energy of the coaching staff and the way that they sort of effectively create that family environment around the program. I think the consensus universally was that it was a really good weekend.
Now, Mikel Horton, as we get into the players, four-star running back from just above where we are in Ohio. Is he a guy that you ultimately think will pick Kentucky? And when's his decision? It's coming on Saturday, I believe, right?
Yeah. I think you know, there's been a little bit of shuffling of dates and whatnot, but right now it looks like Mikel is gonna announce his choice on Saturday. He's already made his choice. It's just a matter of announcing his destination. Kentucky should probably feel pretty good about where they're standing right now. Don't want to get into details, but he's always sort of had Kentucky at the top of his list. And he would obviously be a very big get. He's a big running back. He would add a power dimension to the air raid offense, and I think that he's probably got the best footwork of any big running back in the country, and he would be a huge addition.
It seems like the staff is having a lot of success, at least early on, with guys who can play running back, which I think to some fans is a little curious because, of course, the billing is this air raid offense. How does he fit into what Neil Brown wants to do, kind of along with these other guys that they got in 2013 class and they already have on campus?
Well, you know, he definitely adds another dimension. I don't think that there's any back on the roster right now that runs with the kind of power that Horton has. And, again, his footwork is exceptional. I've talked to some sources close to the program, and, you know, people were kind of curious, where does this guy fit in? Because he seems like he's a downhill runner that would be best suited in like an I formation at a Big Ten team. But, you know, really the key is footwork. It doesn't matter how big, whether somebody is a burner or whether they're a power back. What matters in this offense is their footwork. And I think that, you know, when Neil Brown came in from Texas Tech, one thing that everybody rightly asked was, yeah, we know that you can move the ball. You're going to have quarterbacks throw for 400 yards a game, throw for, you know, 40 touchdowns on a year. But in the SEC, you have to be able to line up, you know, first and goal at the 3-yard line and run it between the tackles. And, you know, hopefully that's what they're going to be getting with somebody like Mikel Horton.
Now, over the weekend, Horton kind of teased that he would announce along with Mike Edwards. I know those plans are on hold. What is the latest with Mike Edwards?
Yeah, Edwards was initially planning to announce his decision with Horton, but apparently those plans were put on hold. Edwards, you know, sent out on tweet. It's become, you know, rather public now that his coach wanted him to wait a little while. Whether his coach wanted him to wait or whether his coach didn't want him to pick Kentucky, you know, has been a source of some debate. I think it probably all would have been best to be handled, you know, away from the public eye. That's not the kind of thing that really helps anybody. But I do know that Kentucky, Vince Marrow specifically, tight ends coach, is going to be making a trip to Winton Woods there in Cincinnati on Friday to try to come to some mutual understanding on you know, how this thing can play out, and we should know a lot more after he visits the school then.
Now, one player who a lot of people have an eye on, at least within the state of Kentucky, of course, is quarterback Drew Barker. Has put up great numbers. A lot of speculation that he will eventually end up at Kentucky. He said that he will set a date, but has not set that date yet. What is the latest with Drew Barker, and how does he fit into this offense?
You know, Drew is going to be deciding, if I had to guess, I would say the first week of May. His plan is to go through the spring evaluation period and let any schools make a final pitch that want to come in. He's going to have Notre Dame come in and talk to him, but right now, so the consensus is it's between Kentucky and South Carolina, with maybe Tennessee on the outside looking in. Really, there's been a lot of speculation about whether Kentucky or South Carolina leads. I'm inclined to say that Kentucky is probably in good shape right now, but I'm not as confident maybe as some people are. I think it's still a little bit up in the air. I talked to Drew last night about his trip to Kentucky. He stayed on Friday night and was there for the spring game on Saturday, so he was there for a while. And, he spoke very candidly. There are some things that he really loves about Kentucky. He loves the energy of the coaching staff. I think he likes the offense they're bringing in. And, of course, he's a big Kentucky basketball fan growing up. But, anybody that watched the spring game saw that Zadarius Smith pretty much had a field day. I don't think I've ever seen a defensive line dominate a game the way that he did, in a setting where you can't tackle the quarterback. And that's exactly what that's something that Drew noticed. And he's a little bit worried about, sort of the strength of the offensive line and how they're going to hold up against SEC defenses. And other schools have made it a habit of telling kids, all of UK's targets, Mark Stoops and his staff aren't going to be at Kentucky if they win. They're going to move on. And that's a message that I think schools have been telling Barker, and he candidly admitted that it is a concern for him. And I think Kentucky's coaches, as they did with Mikel Horton, kind of reassured everybody, look, we're going to be here for the long haul. But that's something that Barker's thinking about as well. I would still say Kentucky has the lead, but I think it's a lot closer than people think.
Now, Matt Elam, another in-state player who's drawing a lot of attention from big-name schools all across the country. What's the latest on Matt Elam, and what are the realistic chances that he eventually ends up as a Wildcat?
I think he's going to be a Wildcat. I really do. He people were a little bit worried when he went down to Alabama and he was personally offered by Nick Saban, because if you're a 6'6", 340-pound defensive tackle, I mean, that is sort of the prototypical, player that Alabama wants in that 3-4 defense. I mean, that really is a glamour position like it wouldn't be anywhere else. But, as he's gone to Florida, as he's gone to Tennessee, as he visited Louisville, as he visited Alabama, it sort of all seems to be coming back to Kentucky, and he feels really at home around Mark Stoops and his staff. Every time he's at Kentucky, all of the coaches really coalesce around him and let him know that, we're recruiting all these big high-profile guys from across the country, but you and Drew Barker are our two top priorities. And that's a message that's really resonated with Matt Elam. I think he'll ultimately be a Wildcat.
Now, the spring and summer is going to be an opportunity for guys to go to camps and work out, including this weekend, where Mikel Horton will announce, of course, is one of the Rivals camps. Who are some players between now and the start of the season that maybe Cats fans should keep an eye on and follow any stories they see online as they get to know them a little better?
Right. Well, obviously, you're going to want to watch all the guys in Ohio. Safety Darius West really likes Louisville, and he likes Kentucky. He's a 4-star guy. I would say tight end Darrell Long is currently a 3-star, but he's got 4-star potential, and he's going to be at the Rivals camp on Saturday, and it's looking very good for Kentucky with him as well. A couple of offensive linemen in Ohio that I think are going to decide by the end of the spring evaluation period would be John Besney and Brady Taylor, and then there are a couple of really, really big-time linemen from Ohio like Jarrett LaRubio and Nick Richardson that I believe are ultimately going to have Kentucky on their short list. From other parts of the country, you're going to see some guys from Florida, some guys from Georgia, some guys from Alabama, but I think the Ohio guys are probably the ones to watch early.
All right, Justin Rowland, thank you very much. Always great stuff. Appreciate your time. People can check out your stuff on Twitter and, of course, on Rivals.com. Thanks again.
Thanks. Take care.